Dan Quinn just bet his future in D.C. on a move that has everyone talking. While the defensive coordinator remains a mystery, the offense already has a new leader who's never called plays in a regular season game. Madness or genius. And hold. Up because the search for the defensive coordinator just took a wild turn that could save our defensive line. 3 bombshell stories that will shape the Commanders' 2026. If you bounce now, you'll miss the most complete breakdown you'll see today. Stick around, because this is heating up. I can't believe what Dan Quinn just did. The man just promoted David Blau to offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. And let me tell you, this move has half the DMV on edge. Why? Because Blau has never, and I mean never, called plays in an NFL regular season game. After years of watching this team struggle with Osizu didn't get what we had. Now Quinn is betting on a guy who's basically a rookie in the role. You think that's a coincidence? I'm telling you this. Quinn knows something we don't fully see yet. Look, Blau spent 2 seasons as an assistant under Cliff Kingsbury, and before that, he was with Ben Johnson in Detroit. And you know what? Johnson is considered one of the brightest offensive minds in the league right now. Blau studied under that system, learned that modern attack mindset, and now Quinn is handing him the keys to the burgundy and gold Ferrari. But here's what really got me thinking. Anthony Armstrong, former Commanders wide receiver, went on Locked On Commanders and said something that stuck with me. Every coach has a notebook full of plays they've drawn up and would love to run. I'm sure he's ready for the challenge. And you know why Armstrong's right? Because we've already seen proof that Blau knows what he's doing. Remember that game-winning touchdown against the Eagles in 2024? That Jaden Daniels pass to Jamison Crowder that sealed the win at home? Guess who designed that play? David Blau. It was a masterclass in defensive manipulation. Blau drew up 2 vertical routes from the receiver and Zach Ertz to stress safety Reed Blankenship on the left side. Daniels had to read the safety, and when Blankenship shaded Ertz, Jaden let it fly to Crowder, who slipped behind linebacker Zach Bowen for the score. That's burgundy and gold. Baby, a play drawn up by an assistant, trusted by Kingsbury and Daniels, and executed perfectly when we needed it most. And now that same mind is going to be designing all our plays. But wait, there's more. This same season, against the Giants, Blau called a deep post for Terry McLaurin on a 1st and 20. 1st and 20, and the guy dials up a deep shot. McLaurin split 2 New York defenders like they were practice cones, caught it clean, and with a few moves after the catch. It was 6 points. After the game, Kingsbury confirmed it was Blau. Who called that play at that exact moment? You get what that means. In a situation where most coordinators play it safe, Blau said, nah, we're going vertical. And it worked out now. I think the question everyone's asking is fair. Why would Quinn risk his job on a coordinator with no experience? Because, let me tell you something, if this 2026 season goes south, Quinn's going to be on the hot seat. Not the fans or media's hot seat, those don't matter. I'm talking about Adam Peters and Josh Harris. That hot seat. But here's what I ask you. What's better, hiring a veteran coordinator with a rigid system that might clash with Jaden Daniels? Or promoting someone who already knows Jaden, who's worked with him, who's designed successful plays for him, and who learned under one of the best offensive minds in the NFL? Because here's the truth. Blau isn't just a guy who draws up pretty plays. The man's been grinding tape, and according to Armstrong, he's been a conduit between Cliff and what the receivers are seeing. That means Blau understands the game from multiple angles. Quarterback, receiver, and coordinator. And yeah, the sample size is small. 2 plays don't make a full season. But those 2 plays tell us something big. Blau has a modern mind, knows how to manipulate defenses, and isn't afraid to be aggressive in clutch moments. You think Quinn made this decision lightly? You're crazy. Quinn's a defensive coach who knows he needs an explosive offense to compete in the NFC East. The Cowboys have Dak Prescott, the Eagles have Jalen Hurts, and a monster O-line. The Giants, well, they're rebuilding, but still, Quinn saw something in Blau over these past 2 seasons. He saw the potential, the connection with Daniels, the successful plays, and decided, this is my guy. And now we, as fans, have to trust that process, because at the end of the day, if Blau succeeds, Quinn looks like a genius who bet on young talent and developed a star coordinator. And if Blau fails, well, Quinn probably goes down with him. That's how high the stakes are. But I'm telling you this, I'd rather see Quinn bet on someone he believes in, someone who's shown flashes of brilliance, than watch another veteran coordinator come in here and force a system that doesn't fit our talent. We Commanders fans know we've suffered enough with coaches who didn't get what we had. Now we finally have an organization willing to take calculated risks, bet on internal talent, and build something special. Is it a risk? Absolutely. Is it exciting? You'd be crazy to say no, because this is exactly the kind of bold move we need from a team that wants to truly compete. So now I ask you, do you believe Blau can take this offense to the next level with Jaden Daniels? But that's nothing compared to what's coming, because while the offense has its leader, the defense is still a mystery that could define our entire season. Commanders fans, this is critical. While we were all still processing the Blau bombshell, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have been grinding behind the scenes to lock in the next defensive coordinator, and their latest interview might just be the key to everything. According to Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, the Commanders interviewed Denard Wilson, defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, this past Saturday. And with that interview, Washington has officially fulfilled the NFL's Rooney Rule requirement, which mandates at least 2 external minority candidates be interviewed, either in person or virtually. And you know what that means? The Commanders are now free to hire their next defensive coordinator as soon as they and the chosen candidate come to terms. No more waiting, no more process. Now it's just about making the right call. But before we dive into Wilson, let's set the stage. Quinn let go of Joe Witt Jr. after a flat-out disastrous defensive season. We had the 3rd worst run defense in the entire league. 3rd worst. And most of our salary cap is tied up in Darren Payne and Javon Kinlaw on that D-line. You think that's acceptable? I'm telling you this. It's unacceptable. It's embarrassing. And it's exactly why Witt is gone. Quinn knows his job depends on fixing this defense, and fast. So far, we know of 3 candidates who've been interviewed: Patrick Graham, DC for the Raiders; Joe Cullen, D-line coach for the Chiefs; and now Denard Wilson. 3 different profiles, 3 different approaches, but one thing in common: experience. And here's the key connection. With Blau being a first-time OC who's never called plays in a regular season game, Quinn needs a veteran DC who can carry the load on game day. Someone who doesn't need Quinn hovering over him, because Quinn's going to have to be available to support Blau when needed. And you know what? Both Wilson and Graham fit that bill. They're veteran defensive coordinators with solid processes and full command of their game day responsibilities. Now let's talk specifically about Denard Wilson, because this guy's resume deserves a serious look. Yeah, the Titans had a rough 2025 season, but here's what most people are missing. Wilson has been part of top 3 pass defenses for 3 straight seasons. First, as DB's coach for the Eagles in 2022. Then, same role with the Ravens in 2023. And finally, as DC for the Titans in 2024. 3 years in a row with elite pass defenses. You know how hard that is? In a league where QBs have every advantage, where the rules favor the offense, Wilson built defenses that consistently shut down the pass. That's nitrogen monoxide coincidence. And here's what really gets me hyped. Wilson has helped develop some of the best DBs in the game today. Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens, one of the most complete safeties in the NFL. Reed Blankenship with the Eagles, total breakout. These guys thrived under Wilson's coaching. But wait, there's more. Remember Jamal Adams in his prime with the Jets? From 2018 to 2020, Adams made 3 Pro Bowls and 3 straight All-Pro teams. Guess who was his DBS coach and defensive pass game coordinator during that stretch? Denard Wilson. Adams was a force back then. A safety who could cover, blitz, stop the run, and Wilson was the brain behind unlocking that talent. Now I ask you, isn't that exactly the kind of development we need here in Washington? We've got Mike St. Ristel, who had a solid rookie year. Trey Amos with upside. Quan Martin heading into the final year of his rookie deal in 2026. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a coach with a proven track record of developing young secondary talent? Because that's exactly what Wilson brings to the table. Now, here's the question everyone's asking. How can he be a good candidate if the Titans were so bad in 2025? And that's fair. But I think we need to look past the team results and focus on what Wilson actually controlled. The Titans had massive offensive issues, injury problems, overall talent problems. But their pass defense still ranked top 3 in the league. That means Wilson did his job with what he had. And look, I'm not saying Wilson is the perfect candidate. There's still research to do, still questions to answer. But what I am saying is this guy has a solid process and a history of getting the most out of his players, especially in the secondary. Compared to Graham, who's been a DC in multiple stops and knows the NFC East from his time with the Giants. Wilson brings something different, a specialty in pass defense and young player development. And compared to Joe Cullen, who's a D-line specialist with the Chiefs, Wilson brings a broader perspective as a coordinator who's called plays and manage full defenses. But you know what's most important here? Quinn is being thorough. He's interviewing multiple candidates with different profiles. He's not rushing the decision. And that gives me confidence, because after years of watching this organization make rushed, bad decisions, we finally have a GM in Adam Peters and a head coach in Quinn who are doing things the right way. They're exploring every option, exhausting the process, and they're going to make the best decision for this team. So now I ask you, do you think Wilson is the right guy to fix our defense? And just when you thought we were done, here comes the real wild card, because there's one candidate nobody's talking about enough, and he might just be the secret hire that fixes our biggest weakness. If you thought the defensive coordinator race was just between Graham and Wilson, you were wrong. Because there's a third candidate who might just be the smartest hire Peters and Quinn could make this offseason. Joe Cullen, defensive line, coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know what you're thinking. A D-line coach as defensive coordinator? And I'm telling you this isn't just any D-line coach. This is a guy who's been coaching defense since 1991, who has real experience calling plays as a defensive coordinator, most recently with the Jacksonville Jaguars. In 2020-1, Cullen brings something neither Graham nor Wilson can match: a laser focus on fixing broken defensive lines. And guess what our biggest weakness is? Exactly that. After years of getting gashed in the run game finishing, as the third worst run defense in the league, we need someone who knows how to build a defensive front from scratch. And Cullen has proven he can do that with fewer resources than we have. Just look at what he's done with the Chiefs since 2022. Kansas City allowed the 9th fewest rushing yards per carry this season, 9th best in the entire league. And you know how much draft capital and salary cap the Chiefs have poured into their D-line? Almost nothing compared to us. Outside of Chris Jones, who's obviously a superstar. Cullen has maximized the talent of guys like George Karlaftis and other lesser-known names. He's developed them, put them in positions to succeed, and built one of the league's best run defenses. Now compare that to us. We've got Darren Payne, who's eating up a massive chunk of our salary cap. We've got Javon Kinlaw, who came in with high expectations and has been a total letdown. We've got Johnny Newton, a recent draft pick who still hasn't shown his full potential. And you know what? None of those guys played up to their level this season. None. And that's unacceptable when you're investing that much money and draft capital into that position. But do you really think Cullen couldn't get more out of Kinlaw and Newton? Do you think he couldn't help Peters make the right call on Payne's future? I think he can do all that and more, because here's the reality. The Chiefs haven't spent big on their D-line, and Cullen still gets results. Imagine what he could do with the talent we already have, or with the talent Peters could bring in through the draft and free agency if Cullen's here to develop it. And here's another thing I love about Cullen. Players love him. This guy brings an intensity on defense that Quinn would absolutely love to have in his system. Cullen is old school. He's a coach who demands excellence, doesn't take excuses, and gets the best out of his guys. And you know what else? Under Steve Spagnuolo in Kansas City, the Chiefs had a top 10 defense even in a year where they weren't as dominant as in past seasons. That means Cullen knows how to work within a successful system, how to adapt, and how to contribute to a collective effort. Now, the question everyone should be asking is, why isn't Cullen getting more attention as a candidate? And I ask you this, isn't this exactly the kind of outside-the-box hire that could change everything? Because look, Graham is a known name. Wilson has the secondary development pedigree. But Cullen is the kind of hire that makes you say, wow, Peters and Quinn really thought differently here. It's a hire that goes straight at our biggest weakness. It's a hire that brings coordinator experience and specific expertise in the area we need most. And it's a hire that fits perfectly what Quinn wants to do defensively. Because here's the connection. Quinn is a defensive coach who knows everything starts in the trenches. If you can't stop the run, you can't do anything else on defense. You can't blitz effectively. You can't put your corners in winning situations. You can't control time of possession. And Cullen gets that better than anyone. He's spent decades mastering the art of building defensive lines that control the line of scrimmage, stop the run, and pressure the quarterback. Now, yes, there are risks. Cullen hasn't been a DC since 2021 with the Jaguars, and that stint wasn't exactly a success. But here's the difference. In Jacksonville, Cullen didn't have the talent. He didn't have the organizational support. He didn't have a GM like Peters who knows how to build a roster. Here in Washington, Cullen would have all of that. He'd have Peters bringing in talent. He'd have Quinn as a head coach who understands defense and can support him. He'd have resources to work with. And look, I'm not saying Cullen is definitely the answer. There's still a lot to consider. But what I'm saying is this is exactly the kind of creative hire that could be the difference between a mediocre defense and an elite one. Because while the Cowboys are doing whatever Jerry Jones is doing, and while the Eagles are trying to keep their championship window open, we here in Washington are making smart, strategic decisions. Peters isn't rushing. Quinn isn't taking the easy route. They're exploring every option, exhausting the process, and making the best decision for this team long-term. So now I ask you, do you trust Peters and Quinn to make the right call at defensive coordinator? Look, these three stories tell us something huge about the future of the Commanders. We're at a turning point. Quinn just bet his future on Blau running the offense, and now he needs to nail the DC hire to save his job and take this team to the next level. Will it be Wilson with his secondary expertise? Graham with his NFC East experience? Or Cullen with his ability to rebuild a defensive line from the ground up? I don't know the answer yet. But what I do know is that Peters and Quinn are doing this the right way. They're being thorough. They're exploring every option, and they're making decisions based on what's best for this team in the long run. And that, Commanders fans, is something we haven't seen in years from this organization. So now I ask you, which of these three candidates do you think should be our next defensive coordinator? Do you trust Quinn's decision with Blau? And do you believe this organization is finally on the right track? Let me know in the comments what you think. And if this breakdown gave you insights you hadn't seen anywhere else, if it made you think differently about these decisions, then I need you to do three things. First, hit that like button. Second, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow, we've got more explosive Commanders news you do not want to miss. And third, share this video with other Commanders fans who need to stay in the loop, because this isn't just a YouTube channel. This is a family of burgundy and gold fans who live and breathe this team together. And you are part of that family, Dotso. Join the community, turn on the notification bell, and get ready for the next video, because I promise you, it's going to blow your mind. And remember, hail to the Redskins.